What's up guys, welcome back to another video. It's Aleksi here. So in this video I want to talk about God and how God breaks your pride when you get success. If you'd like to check out the truth, first link. Second link, my new course, Walk with God. If you'd like to walk with God better and be more disciplined in your faith and understand how to pursue your faith faster and better. And yeah, has optional live calls with me and community privately and everything else. And then 9 modules. Then donations if you'd like, and one-on-ones if you want to talk with me. Thank you, and thank you for the comments as well. Keeps me motivated and going. Thank you very much, and I really like that I'm able to help a lot of you out that I've seen in the comments, and that brings joy to my heart. But thank you. So in this video I want to talk about pride and how, in a sense, God breaks our pride, especially if you become very prideful after you gain some kind of blessing from God and success, because it's very easy to become very prideful in the sense that if you get some kind of money blessing or fame, or a lot of people maybe come to like you a lot, and you get a lot of, I don't know, whatever you're gonna call fans, then a lot of people get this huge pride, especially even if they're on their faith journey and they follow God, they get this huge pride and they're not humble at all about it. Or they try to be, but then they fall eventually, They try to be humble for a while, but then it gets to them, they have money and success, and then that money and success makes them very prideful and they kind of overstep their own boundaries, and they might forget God and abandon God because they got this success now. And that's what a lot of people do, is they search God for blessings, and then they abandon God as soon as they get those blessings, and they stop praying, they stop reading the word, they just go on with their lives. And that's a lot of people also, they pray for people, they pray for their parents or relatives or friends to not have an illness, and then God removes that illness from them, and then they abandon God straight away after they get the blessing. And that's what a lot of people do, is that's why God also breaks your pride, because it's God doesn't want you to be prideful for these materialistic things. And God wants us to be humble and honest people and normal humanity. And being a celebrity or chasing this celebrity fame gain lifestyle also with your faith journey is kind of dangerous, in the sense that especially if you can't handle it at all, which is a lot of people, it's a huge temptation to kind of become prideful and become very enamored, you could say, enamored by the being a celebrity and having people in a sense not care but care about you, in the sense that you have you could say fanboys, or you have people that are fans, or supporting you or whatever, or fawning over you. And that's what a lot of people get attached to, is these temporary things, and having people and having the status and identity in society. And this is where you also get that pride, is then when people give you all these nice comments and whatever, you start being really prideful about yourself. And that's where you kind of, if you do gain some kind of favor from God, and you gain some kind of status because it's just part of what you're doing, kind of you could say, for me, it is kind of part of what I'm doing right now, for example. And you kind of need to, on your faith journey, just come to understand through reading the word and praying to God, and seeking that, still staying humble and following God and being disciplined in your faith. That's the most important thing you can ground yourself in, so you don't become prideful. And also having the self-awareness to understand that it's so important to understand when you're being overly prideful, when you're overly, you could even be taking advantage of this in different ways, whether it's just coveting in the flesh, or too much, or enjoying that status too much in your head, and it gets to your head. Because that's also how the devil is going to attack you, is once you get these blessings, the devil has almost an open door to get to you easier, in the sense that if you aren't very strong-willed in some sense, or have a resolve in your faith and following God or understanding the word and truth, you're gonna have a lot of trouble with if you do gain some kind of fame and gain, in a sense, or blessings from God with materialistic things. Then you have to be very careful, in the sense that you don't basically become a devil's advocate in some sense, because you just gain these things. Or even if you had them and you come to your faith, you kind of need to learn to let go of these things, and that's what God teaches us. And that's where you also need to remember these things are temporary, and all the status and identity, it doesn't matter if people are fawning over you, and so on. You shouldn't worry about that. The only opinion you should worry about is what actually God thinks of you, not even like what your parents think about you or anybody else in society. What you should care about is what God thinks about you, and that's the only thing that actually matters, not what other people in society think about you. You know, it's the same thing with me making these videos or doing anything I do in life. If I care about other people's opinions and, you know, what they think of my, like, whatever, maybe hairstyle or like how I act or what I do and how I'm in my faith and what I do, my path, then I would have a lot of trouble. And, you know, that also can lead, when you get some kind of like fans or some kind of recognition or fame, that release, that celebrity status can also lead to a lot of these problems where you kind of fall back into these sins and states, you know, the dangers of fame, you know, when you start getting more of that fame and then you kind of get enamored in it. You know, a lot of people also get fame and then later, you know, they get enamored in it and they kind of fall into that pit, you could say fire pit, with the devil, and they get enamored by these fans, but then they realize it's kind of empty even, that, you know, there's nothing really there, especially if they built their fan base wrong, or whatever you want to say, follower base, and these people are not really like, they don't really care about them, or they did something stupid, and it's very empty, all this fame and status and identity. It doesn't last, it's temporary, it doesn't matter to your life at all. Only thing that actually gives you meaning and fulfillment is God. So like, I've also seen people who, you know, change their path a little bit. They stop caring about the fame and they actually start doing something meaningful, you know, that they felt called to, perhaps by God, I don't know, or by their intuition. But like, you know, I've seen a lot of people fall because of their fame and, you know, getting prideful and abandoning God in their life and, you know, forgetting about God and, you know, pursuing, whether it's like marriage or relationships and, you know, hooking up and partying and smoking, doing drugs, you know, doing this just dumb stuff basically. I've seen a lot of people do these mistakes, you know. I'm not gonna mention anybody by name, but I know a lot of people who have done this, you know, in the past, that I've seen stories, and a lot of people do the same thing. You know, they get rich and fame, you know, they get blessed by God, they're blessed by God to have these things, and then, you know, they straight away fall, you know, they do drugs, hook up with women, etc., promiscuity and so on. That's why it's so important, almost like when you start your faith journey and you're not yet you haven't received any blessings, you know, you're actually becoming worthy to even receive those blessings to begin with when you're on your walk with God. And that's really why I think it's so important to build that discipline and faith and come to read the word and understand yourself and have that self-awareness, because once you attain that with God and you come to understand God as well and his work that he's doing on you, and you become self-aware of yourself, you're much less likely, it's not like the temptation is gone, but we're much less likely to fall into these temptations when you are in a faith path and you understand these things. It's so important, in my opinion, to like have God shape you, even if you are to get blessings or not get blessings, it doesn't really matter. Have God shape you into the true high self that you're meant to be. You know, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or just average, ordinary human, whatever you want to say. We're all ordinary humans anyway. It doesn't matter materialistically or not, if we are wealthy. But like, you know, if you're blessed enough to be on this God journey with us, with me, and just understand that like that character refinement and shaping is much more important than any materialistic things you gain, because all those materialistic things and fames, those things those are not you. They're not you. You're in your highest self. What matters more is not like if you have a supercar, what matters is who is inside that supercar, in a sense. It's pretty good revelation to say, in a sense. Like, what matters is your character and how you're able to handle these things, rather than, you know, if you understand the truth and apply it in your life and understand God, what he's doing in your life and your faith, and are you actually worshiping God and praising God. That's what actually matters, and not all this, you know, external BS we suffer with. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say in this video. Is like, don't focus on these things and focus on God. And if you're in that wilderness season as well, just remember that is exactly what you need to be refined, even to be, whether you are blessed or not by God, to have some kind of things in your life. That refinement season is exactly what you need, and that's exactly what I need as well. You know, even if it's hardship, you know, we need to go through that, because that's how we actually become the person that can handle anything, whether it is you are blessed or not by God. And having materialistic things, you need to have the right eye, in a sense, to understand and see through these things, and to see, you know, how God actually wants you to be, and remember what's actually important in your life, which is God always. So if there's a will, there's a way. I hope this video helps. Amen. Thank you. I think this is very important for you to understand.